Last video for the unit, how do we simplify exponent expressions? To simplify, we're going to use our order of operations, or GEMDAS. First, we're going to simplify anything inside parentheses or a fraction. Because remember, a fraction is a form of a grouping symbol. And we want to move any terms necessary to get rid of our negative exponents. Because remember, we don't want any negative exponents in our final answer. Step 2, distribute any exponents outside of your parentheses. And 3, apply your exponent rules to simplify the expression. Let's try these out. So in this first problem, there's no parentheses or fractions, but I do see a bunch of negative exponents. So I'm going to move those first. So I'll make a fraction. First term here, 2 to the negative third, that's a negative exponent. That's going to move down to the denominator. X squared doesn't have a negative exponent. I'll keep it where it is. Y has a negative exponent. Going to move that down to the denominator. Z, no negative exponent. I'll keep it where it is. And then really the only thing I have to do to simplify here is that 2 cubed. I'll keep my X and my Z. 2 cubed is 8, Y to the 4th. And there's no other like terms to combine here. They're all different variables, so I am done. That's my answer. Next one, I see a bunch of negative exponents again. I'm going to go ahead and move those. So I'll leave the 4 and the 5 alone. Those do not have an exponent. This X will move down to the denominator. This Y will also move down to the denominator. And this X will have to move up to the numerator. And now I've moved all of my terms. I see I can simplify because I have an X in both the numerator and the denominator. So I have X cubed divided by X squared. When I'm dividing, I subtract my exponents. So 3 minus 2 is 1. And I always write that answer up in the numerator. When I subtract, my y stays down here. Another way to think of it is, again, there's 3 x's up here, 2 down here. I can cancel out 2 of them. 1 is left in the numerator. And there's nothing else to simplify. 4/5 doesn't reduce. So I'm done. A little bit more complicated now. I want to simplify my parentheses or my fraction. Again, a lot of negative exponents, so I'm going to go through and move those first. That 3, no negative exponent, I'll keep it. This y has a negative exponent, so I'll move that down to the denominator to make it y cubed. Denominator, this 4 has a negative exponent, so I'm going to move that up to the numerator. This x has a negative exponent. It's in the denominator, so I'll move it up to the numerator. This y has a positive exponent, so I will leave it where it is. It's in the denominator. I'm going to keep it in the denominator. And last, the z. Z is a positive exponent, so I will leave it where it is. We'll deal with that negative exponent later. Let's simplify that fraction. 4 squared, I know that is 16, so I can go ahead and just multiply 3 times 16 to save myself a step. And 3 times 16 is going to be a 48. That's the only x, so I'll leave that as an x squared. Y cubed times y to the 4th. If I'm going to multiply these two terms, I should add those exponents. 3y's times 4 more y's is y to the 7th. And then I keep that z. And there is... So now I need to do everything in the parentheses to the negative second power. So that's 48 to the negative second power. I will have x squared to the negative second power, and to save myself a step, I'll go ahead and do that. Power to a power means I multiply, so that's negative 4 in my denominator. Y to the 7th to the negative second. Again, a power to a power means I multiply y to the negative 14th. Z squared to the negative second. Power to a power, I multiply. 2 times negative 2 is a negative 4. Everything has a negative exponent, so everything's gonna have to move. Both of my numerator terms are going to the denominator. The denominator terms will be moved up to the numerator. And then the only thing left I have to do is that 48 squared, which I would definitely go ahead and do on your calculator. And that is 2,304. Not a very nice answer, but it's the correct one. Last one, I'm multiplying two different fractions, so I'm going to want to simplify each fraction as much as possible before I multiply them together. Now I notice in this first one I have a whole bunch of stuff all to the power of 0. So before I even worry about that negative, I know that anything to the power of 0 is 1. So that whole numerator is just a 1. In this fraction, I want to see what I can do to simplify the inside of this fraction first. There's no negative exponents on the inside, but I do see some stuff I can simplify here. I'm going to keep my 3, x squared over an x, 2 minus an invisible 1 would be just x, y cubed divided by y, 3 minus another invisible 1 is 2, and single z. So I've simplified my inside of the parentheses. Now I have to do everything to the negative first power. So what that's going to do is really just move everything into the denominator. Because the first power doesn't really do anything, but the negative will move everything down here. And now I'll multiply these together. When I multiply fractions, I multiply across. 1 times 1 is 1. 3 times 3 is 9. Again, I write my variables in alphabetical order. So there's a single x, there's a y squared, and z cubed times 1 more z is z to the 4th. And that's it.